Welcome to Peninsula Clean Energy's webinar, How to Save Money When Installing EV Charging. Very excited. Today we have a really great agenda for you. Just to introduce myself, I'm George Koff. I'm a program manager here at ClearResult. And Steve Wilcox, if you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Steve Wilcox. I do a bunch of our operations support. I handle our hotline. You send emails to us. I help with those as well. And I'm just here.
Steve is going to be helping. If you have any kind of technical difficulties or if you need any assistance, you can reach out to Steve through the chat. He'll be happy to help you. A few quick webinar protocols for today. Just to let you know, the webinar is being recorded. We will be posting this webinar later. All attendees are in listen-only mode, meaning that your mics and cameras have been disabled. If you have any questions or comments, please use either the chat or the Q&A features. Just ask that any comments or questions that you ask, that you be respectful. Also, just to point out that I'm the program manager for the technical assistance portion of PCE's EV Ready program. And just to clarify, we serve as neutral third parties. We're vendor agnostic and we're the technical experts. So just to be clear, since we're vendor agnostic, you might hear some references to some products and or services or companies today. Just want to be very clear that you shouldn't take any of those either as explicit or implicit endorsements. And also, just to clarify, vendors should not be using this venue to promote their products or services. Allow me to introduce our presenters. We have Melanie Jasper with Peninsula Clean Energy and Michael Martin, who's one of our senior EV account managers. I will turn it over to Melanie. If you want to introduce yourself, please.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm definitely excited to be here talking to everyone. This is our second webinar of the spring, and we have some exciting information to share with you about our case study today. So myself, I'm Melanie Jasper. I'm with Peninsula Clean Energy, and I'm the program manager for our EV Ready EV charging team. I'm here with Michael Martin from our consultants ClearResult. He's going to get some time to talk to you later in this presentation, so I'll let him take it over then. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Next slide, please. Okay, agenda. So I'm going to give you a quick Peninsula Clean Energy background, a little bit about the EV Ready program. I'm going to spend a little bit less time on this because we did cover it in our last webinar. So if you're interested, that's also available on the Peninsula Clean Energy YouTube channel. We're going to spend a bit more time today on our case study and on general Q&A, so we could hopefully answer any questions you have about our program. And at the end of this presentation, there's some resources for everyone as well. Let's go ahead and get into the next slide. So from today's presentation, we really have two main takeaways that we'd like to highlight. And these are the two aspects of our EV charging program here at Peninsula Clean Energy. So one is that we are able to offer rebates. There is money on the table for your EV installation projects. And the second is that there's free design assistance available. So that's the service that ClearResult is providing for us and for our customers. This is, a third-party neutral technical advice. Will help connect with property owners one-on-one and provide you an assessment of your property, includes sending someone on site, all those great things you'll hear about later. And we want you to know that this service is available for any property owners, property managers who are interested in taking advantage. Go ahead and next slide. So I wanted to cover real quickly who is Peninsula Clean Energy. So Peninsula Clean Energy, we are a utility just like PG&E. However, you could see from this graphic that we actually work in conjunction with PG&E. So you'll get one bill and it'll show both generation and delivery charges. PCE, we're doing the generation aspect of that. And importantly, we're locally led and we're providing clean and affordable electricity at a rate lower than PG&E. And we are non-for-profit in that anything we make from the sale of electricity gets reinvested through our community programs. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what this program is about. It's about PCE's commitment to reinvesting in our community and reinvesting in programs that increase access to sustainable solutions. Go ahead and go on next slide. So why EV charging and EV ready? Well, we see that electric vehicles are here. Adoption is really high, especially in San Mateo County. And because of that, we are working on building out the infrastructure that's meeting this need. And I think a lot of property owners, you're probably already seeing that this is becoming an amenity that drivers, that residents are starting to expect. You can go on ahead to the next slide. And so that brings us to our EV Ready program. So this program has actually been in existence about 5 years now. We've worked one-on-one with over 400 property owners and installed over 1,500 ports throughout our service territory, which is San Mateo County and Los Baños. A few aspects of this program again. So we provide rebates for level 1 and level 2 charging. That includes outlets as well as level 2 EVSE. And again, we provide complimentary design assistance. So this is just helping property owners understand what are the options for my property, how does EV charging work, what charger should I install, how much does it cost, right? These are the important questions. Also, as part of that, we could help connect you to qualified contractors. But again, this program's existence is really to reach this overall goal and serve this need that we see for more EV charging, especially in multifamily, but also workplace and public locations. And at the end of the day, we don't want access to an EV charger to be a barrier for anyone to choose to go electric in our territory. You go ahead to the next slide. So I'm going to cover briefly here just I covered who Peninsula Clean Energy is, what's our role versus Clear Result. So we're the program provider, and we, again, are providing incentives for EV charging, as well as determining the program direction. And then Clear Result is our partner, our consultants on this, who are providing the technical assistance services. And we actually work in conjunction on a lot of the design strategy and approaches that help us serve more customers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Martin, who will talk a bit more about the program process and what services we have available for property owners.
Thank you, Melanie, and welcome everybody. Glad you guys could attend today. As Melanie mentioned, we're Clear Result. We're a consulting company based out of Austin, Texas. We work on a number of programs, 50 states, US, also in Canada. We're a proud partner with Peninsula Clean Energy on this exciting program. And again, as she had mentioned earlier, we are proud to be administering the complimentary technical design support for your EV charging related projects. This is our customer journey. So once you've submitted an application, then we go through a series of steps to, as I like to say, ultimately make your dreams come true. So once the application has been submitted, then we'll have a series or a couple of what we call pre-site evaluation calls. This will be followed up by an in-person site visit from one of our energy engineers. Once that site visit is complete, we'll gather the necessary quantitative data that we need to put your report together. During the report presentation, I'll also be throwing you suggestions on design layouts and 2 to 3 different solutions that you can take a look at. At the conclusion of that report, you'll have a chance to huddle up, go through the contractor bidding process. Once you've decided who your contractor of record is going to be, the contractor will be responsible for acquiring the work permits, doing the installation. Once the scope of work has been completed, everything is up and operational. You'll submit your paperwork to Peninsula Clean Energy. Upon approval, you can expect to receive your rebate check back within a 3 to 6 week window. So we try to make this very seamless, as I like to call it, one-stop shopping, and very user-friendly. Now, we have a number of Peninsula Clean Energy incentives for this program, covering a multitude of different properties. As you can see here, a multifamily dwelling, we offer both incentives for both the level 1 and level 2 outlets, level 2 charging station ports, also upgrading of your main panel. We also have a program for affordable housing multifamily dwellings. So this could maybe include something like a Eden Housing, Bridge Housing, Mercy Housing, et cetera, et cetera. But again, as I mentioned, level 1 and level 2 outlets, level 2 charging ports. In addition, if you have a workplace, we offer incentives for employee parking only. We also offer incentives for large publicly non-accessible residential locations. So this could be a huge parking lot that maybe is a workplace, but also offers public parking. We have that program ready for you, again, covering level 1 and level 2 outlets, level 2 charging ports, and also we offer a special, what we call make-ready infrastructure program. This allows you to install your electrical conduit and everything and be incentivized for that without installing EV equipment today. So this allows you to prepare for the future, which a lot of people would like to take a look at. Today, we've got a special guest. We have a featured speaker, Brandon Aiello. He is a proud customer who's gone through the PC EV Ready program. He's going to share his story, and then we'll open it up to some additional Q&A, questions and answers. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thank you.
So, Brandon, I'll just kind of start here. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about your property business and the relevant experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. I grew up in a construction, development, real estate household. Prior to working with my family, which I thought I'd never do, I'd done residential and investment real estate sales. Also worked for the residential or real estate investment trust equity residential. Right now, my wife does all of our real estate purchases and sales for our sphere and general public. My family stopped building in the 80s and 90s, so most of our buildings are from the 60s and 60s through the 80s. So now we pretty much exclusively manage our own private portfolio. We do not manage for anyone else. One thing I will note since I've just unmuted myself is I do work in an active open office space. So apologies for any outside noise you may hear during the presentation.
And could you share with us how many properties did you actually enroll in the PCE EV Ready program?
Yeah, so we have a few properties. We manage properties from small to moderate sized apartment communities, duplexes, and single family homes. The duplexes and single family homes aren't eligible. It has to be over 4 units for this program. But I will say for every single property that we have that's over 4 units, it's getting an EV outlet for every apartment or parking space. When it's all said and done, we'll have over 100 outlets installed throughout the portfolio. We're about halfway through the process right now.
How did you decide to include an EV outlet for every parking space?
So I guess at this time, it's also important for me to disclose, and I guess in an effort for full transparency, I'm not an EV advocate or supporter in any way. I don't drive an EV, nor do I intend to drive an EV in the near future. I may talk about this throughout the presentation, but although witnessing from friends and soliciting information from friends and tenants who do charge, living at a building, workplace, or charging in public places like at malls or grocery stores, there can be many challenges to the smaller designated charging areas, like enough room for the demand or not enough EVs parking in those spots. Or if, say, for instance, someone leaves their car in that spot or isn't an EV charger and the charging capability is going unused. So we decided to basically put an EV charger pretty much for every single spot or every single apartment.
Could you share with us your experience in terms of working with the Complimentary Technical Assistance Advising Program?
Yeah, absolutely. So Clear Result through Peninsula Clean Energy answered all my questions, which there are a lot, including harsh, skeptical ones. As I said, I work for a family company, so there was family disputes and passionate conversations in that process. They sent an on-site infrastructure engineer who also answered a lot of challenging questions on site and provided a very thorough report with solutions and options and a game plan for moving forward in the process.
When it was all said and done, what would you say just maybe as a rough cost estimation or cost information you'd like to share?
Yeah, so for cost, most parts for our particular communities, it's basically been free. So with that being said, the rebates not only offset the cost, they completely eliminated the cost. There was 2 instances, one which we chose, most cases we chose level 1 charging, but in one property we chose level 2, and that cost us a slight premium. And then in another instance, we had a building that required longer runs of like conduit and things like that, including through a post-tension slab, which required X-raying. So that cost a little extra in that process. But with that being said, each one of those buildings that were a little bit extra, I would say was no more than $2,000 out of pocket when it was all said and done.
Nice, nice.
And actually, I'll add that one of the ones with the post-tension slab, that was with 18 chargers too. So for 2,000 for 18 chargers, basically nothing.
Which EV vendor did you select, and what's been your experience in terms of working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I chose Orange. I think they call themselves Orange Charger, but it's technically an Orange outlet. It's been a great experience. It's been a little bit of a growing process with them with it. I've seen their dashboard evolve into something kind of rudimentary to pretty robust. I've had to use the support line a few times for basic things, and they're pretty responsive. Little things like that. It's been a good partnership.
Any feedback from your drivers in terms of their experience in terms of using these chargers?
Yeah, so the level 2s absolutely love it. The level 1s, there's often a complaint of slow because they're not used to using a level 1. But the big takeaway or the big message I would have with that is it becomes a little bit of an education piece where you educate the tenants or end user that it's kind of a piece of the puzzle. Level 1s aren't designed, but in some cases they can be. The Orange Chargers level 1s use a welding style plug. They often recommend a dedicated amp, which gives you a little more juice than a normal outlet in your house. But I often say it's a piece of the puzzle. So when you have a level 1, you should be charging during your dwell time, meaning anytime you're at home, every day when you're at home, where people with level 2s are used to charging a few times a week. You should be charging if you have it in your workplace. You should be charging there. If you go to Target or Whole Foods or wherever they have it, you should be charging there. So it should just be a piece of the puzzle with that. That's basically feedback from tenants.
Nice. And how did the technical assistance help you come to a decision?
I knew someone who had went through the program before, so I knew the cost factor was cheap, if not free. So that was a big deciding factor to the decision. It was all the questions I can't think of them off the top of my head. We've been going through this for over a year now, but all the questions we had, and there were a lot, and they were passionate, and they were challenging, were answered by the clear result in PCE teams, and ultimately made us not comfortable with our decision.
And what impact did those incentives have on you, helping you to make this decision?
I mean, without them, we probably wouldn't be doing it at all. We'd kind of be in the category of tough luck. But when it's like I was telling a friend yesterday, when it's free, it's pretty no-brainer. Even if the EV market crashes, you can still charge a vacuum cleaner on it, or if you use a vacuum cleaner, or if you have a gas-powered car that uses a battery tender, you can use that on it. And instead of me paying for it now, the tenant pays for it. Or if you want to charge an electric scooter or bike, you can use it for that too.
Yeah, that's my next question in terms of do your chargers generate revenue?
Yeah, they do. So through the Orange Charger portal, you put in your electric plan, which gives you the base cost. Orange Charger charges a slight few cents per kilowatt hour to manage the payment system and infrastructure, and then you can choose your markup. I often compare it to, although we own the chargers, I compare it to like the laundry model for multifamily. So you get a profit share that you can kind of choose, more so even than laundry machines. But it's an amenity that we can offer that not only I can see the revenue from the markup I charge per kilowatt, but also charging a higher price for my apartments because I now have that amenity, or having less vacancy loss because there's few people out there that have EV chargers, especially one for every parking spot. That seems as a feature, especially with all the housing that's coming into California right now and how competitive it can be. It's a free/low cost feature that us little/older buildings can add.
And speaking of that, with the older buildings, were there any intangible benefits such as a cosmetic look or anything of that nature?
Exactly. Actually, I'm glad you touched on that. So, yeah, my buildings, like I said, are built in the 60s and 80s, and all we do a very good job of keeping them up with remodeling and things like that. They're obviously from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And with that being said, you have this bright orange outlet on the wall with nice new conduit coming down with a little LED orange shaped thing with an RFID code inside of it so they can set up their payment system. And it gives you that little level of like, this building may not be that old. And often, sometimes the question happens on tours or people are like, how old is this building? And they're shocked to hear the date of the construction because of the way we keep them up, but also because of seeing that kind of techie EV charger there.
In terms of this process, how did you keep the installation costs down when you crossed, say, what is it, 5 buildings or five different site locations that you have?
So keeping it down was for us, in most cases, choosing level 1s over level 2s. Um, um, Basically, just not going overboard with crazy options. Level 2s would be, I guess, nice and everything, but it would probably require your main electrical panel for the building that powers an elevator, that powers intercom systems, that powers all your house lights and emergency alarm systems. They can only have so much capacity. So level 1s make it a little bit more affordable to do that. Where possible, level 2s can get. It made sense to us because the one building we put level 2 in was more luxurious. Instead of having a charger for every space, we've made it for every apartment. So they share 2 side-by-side apartment or parking spaces, and we put the charger in the middle. So just making decisions like that, not going overboard, but at the same time utilizing all the rebates to where you can go overboard a little bit.
And what is the one piece of advice you would give a site host who is maybe considering EV charger installation?
So I touched on it a little bit. It's that education for charging, that it's a piece of the puzzle. You should be charging kind of everywhere when it comes to living in multifamily or charging in a commercial space. I don't think it's sustainable to buy an electric vehicle and just charge at Target or just charge. Some people can do it just charging at home with a level 2. But with a level 1 with Target, or with not Target, I'm naming somewhere, but Burger King's have them, Targets, Whole Foods, wherever, out in public. Level 1s are usually the piece of the puzzle. With a 10-hour dwell time, you can get about 10 to 20 miles of charge on a pure EV vehicle. If you have a plug-in hybrid, you're really, level 1 should be enough. But just really, like I said, I'm not an EV person. So educating yourself on kind of how the EV things works, I would kind of do before starting this process, or at least getting a basic understanding of it. Also kind of understanding the rates and how that evolves too. So like, for instance, through Peninsula Clean Energy / PG&E, your average kilowatt hour on your house meter is probably going to be around 75 cents. After you install the chargers and give them a VIN number, your rate will average about 50 cents. So not only are you saving a little bit, or now you're getting a better rate for your end user on the rate that they're charging from, but also the things like your elevator and house lights and charging nicely gets bundled into that package, and you save a little money on your electricity there as well.
Okay, and I just have a couple of more questions before we kind of wrap it up here. We mentioned going through the vendor selection process. How about the trade ally / contractor selection process? How did that go? And then based on your selection and ultimate experience, how's that all worked out?
Yeah, so I use an electrician called Roche Electric out of Burlingame, California. He's been great, really great quality of work. I did go through the bidding process, went through about 3 or 4 people off the list, and ultimately decided on Brian Roche of Roche Electric. Because of pricing and just the quality of work I've seen him do before. I was able to see some of his other projects and see that conduit was run straight and job site was kept neat and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've been with the program for at least a year now. And you guys had your ducks in a row then. I can only imagine what it's like now. with vendors, both electricians and outlet options. Orange Charger wasn't the only option you guys gave me. There were a few good options to go forward, and I ultimately had decided on Orange through a podcast that the CEO Nick Johnson did with it was called, he did a podcast. It was on YouTube. I'm blanking on the name of it right now.
It was called Living Electric, and if
Thank
anyone's
you.
interested, I will
Thank
put
you.
the link in the chat.
Yeah, Living Electric podcast. Thank you. The podcast is from about 2 years ago. Some of the information might be a little outdated, but the general premise and some good information in there about how they started designing it, how the company kind of works, where the company's kind of going. And
Awesome.
in those 2 years, you kind of see some of those milestones that they were talking about 2 years ago being checked.
Nice. And is there anything else you'd like to add in closing? Anything out there for the prospective future applicants and customers for this program?
No, it's been a pretty easy, smooth sailing process. Also, full disclosure, Michael is my account manager, and it's been a pleasure working with him and everyone that I've interacted with at Clear Result and PCE. One other thing too that's been, I forgot to mention as well, the big key word right now in our industry, I feel like, is insurance. And I fill out an insurance thing every year for shopping insurance rates, and it's like, when have you last changed your roof? When have you last done a major plumbing upgrade? When have you last done a major electrical upgrade? Here's a way to say that I last did a major electrical upgrade in 2004 or 2024, 2025, and it to be relatively free, if not free. So it's been helped on multiple ways that I can quantify, and other ways that I can't even quantify. And the reach of how it's helped has been pretty amazing.
That's great news, man. Glad to hear that. And again, thank you for choosing us and trusting us, both PCE and Clear Result, to assist you in this. It's been great. And George, I will turn this back to you.
Brandon, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and we're at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and hit a few slides here to kind of wrap up. But Brendan and the rest of the presenters are happy to stick around. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to put those questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we will be monitoring that. And happy to stick around to 1 o'clock if we need to. So, as far as next steps, if you want to enroll in the complimentary design assistance program, you can click on the link right there. I'll also put a link in the chat in just a moment. And then once you've gotten your designs in order, then you can submit the rebate, reservation, and installation. That's also on the screen there. Pretty straightforward. The main things we want to make sure everyone takes away from today: PCE has quite a few resources for their customers. PCE wants to do projects that work for their customers. So there's rebates to offset the installation costs, and then there's the complimentary design and cost estimate assistance, which we're third parties. We don't sell anything. We're here just to answer questions and give you information. And if you participate, there's no risk. It's not going to cost you anything. And if you look at the options we give you and you decide now is not the time to move forward, there's no obligation for you to move forward. We're here to just provide the information. Last thing, we're open for Q&A right now. Feel free to type those into the chat if anybody has any questions. I'm also going to put a link in. We have a post-webinar survey that we would really appreciate if folks could take a moment to fill that out. I'll put that in the link. I'll put that link in the chat in just a moment. And then before we dive into the Q&A, one last announcement. We have another webinar coming up in just a few weeks on June 3rd. And this one will dive into much more of a technical side of the EV charging. So we'll answer questions about how does billing work. Brendan was nice enough to touch on that a little bit. We're going to take a little bit more of a deep dive into these other topics that you can see here. And I'll put the link if you want to register for that training as well. The last thing before we launch into the Q&A is just letting everyone know we will be sending out this PowerPoint presentation as a PDF to everyone who registered, and we have quite a few resources that we have included in there. You've seen some of these as Brendan was talking. I was referencing these slides that you're looking at now, but we also include information on the preferred pricing vendors. So these are options that PCE has already worked out preferred pricing with these particular vendors on their equipment, and there's quite a few options here. I've also included all the contact information for our registered trade allies. So these are the contractors who have gone through our vetting process and are officially aligned with the program. And at this point, I'll turn it over to the Q&A. Let's see if there's any Q&A. I have not been looking at the Q&A because I've been busy doing the other stuff. Let's see. Do we have any questions in the Q&A?
There is one from Jeff. It is, what kind of rebate could a Class A commercial garage realize?
Ooh, Melanie, Michael, which one do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I could talk about it. And actually, if you want to go back up to the workforce slide that shows incentives while we talk about it. Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for the question. So most likely we would treat a commercial garage as workplace charging. And if they're being used, either if they're being used for your employees or for your own like fleet vehicles, either way, we could designate that in that employee parking category. So you would get that $5,000 per port for level 2 or $2,000 per outlet.
All right, excellent, thank you. Any other questions that have come up? If we don't have any questions, I would be curious, or go ahead.
We have a chat question that just came in. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think mine's also a little delayed in the refreshing of the chat. Sorry, go ahead,
It's
Steve.
okay. The chat question from Cynthia, if I butchered that, I'm very sorry. Can you share a little bit about where the funding comes from? Any concerns with the political landscape for incentive funding? Should building owners be prioritizing this ASAP?
That is a great set of questions. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I think this has been top of the mind. The good news for us with Peninsula Clean Energy and with the EV Ready program is that we're fully self-funded. So we don't rely on any state or federal funding for this program. It's completely funded via reinvesting ratepayer funds. So again, we're selling our electricity, the electricity that we generate, and all of that gets reinvested through community programs. And so that's where this program funding comes from. As far as how soon to move, I will say we're seeing a wave of larger projects go through where it's great to see like the scale and adoption is here. And I think this is becoming like EV charging is becoming the new Wi-Fi, right? It's becoming an amenity, especially here around the Bay Area, that renters are asking for and interested in. So I'm always going to encourage folks to move while the incentives are here. As far as our program funding, though, I don't see anything changing in the near future. If anything, there's a chance that the incentive levels would decrease over time. I think that's the most likely possibility, but unlikely that they're going to go away completely in the near future.
Excellent. Wonderful. It's great news to know that we don't have to worry about what happens in Washington, D.C. on this. Any other remaining questions? While we're waiting for more questions to come into the chat, I did want to point out this one slide here that I had this up while Brendan was talking, but just to clarify, this is an example of one of our charging evaluation reports, which, Brent, I'd love to hear your take on the reports that we issued for each of your properties. But before you do, I just want to point out, this is just an example of some of the different layouts that our engineers will put together the layout to show you, hey, this is what, this is what makes sense as far as this is where you would want to install your new EV panel, and here's the existing infrastructure. And if we ran this much conduit and these types of chargers, here's how much it would cost. But then there's this other option. We could also do it this way. I'm just kind of curious, Brendan, what you thought about the charging evaluation reports that you received for the properties.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, like, I got to keep on saying that I'm not an EV guy. So I walked into these reports not knowing much at all. And the level of thought that your team puts into it is pretty amazing. Like, for instance, I'm not familiar with I know what property this is, but I'm not familiar with the exact solutions. They usually give me 2 to 3, 4 solutions, usually averages around 3. With that being said, they take things into like dwell time for use of the parking space. Like, is it if it's someone that's going to be there like an actual apartment, like is a level 1 sufficient for it, where it's you have a longer dwell time, or if it's like a future, sorry about my phone there, a future resident parking, is it something that needs like a level 2 because they're only going to be there for about 30 minutes on a tour? Or is it an employee parking space where they're just going to be charging for a little bit and then they don't stay at the property, they go home for the night? Things like that they take into consideration, which I wouldn't have normally thought of. They take into consideration different run routes to the main electrical room and things like that to try to do different visual cues versus cost and things like that. Really, really in depth, and you're there with, it felt like an unlimited amount of time to ask that engineer all those questions about how EV charging works, or how what he thinks the plan might be before the report's done, and he asks you questions like, do you want all level 2s? Do you want level 2 split between parking spaces, so he can kind of get a gauge to narrow down his solutions or her solutions for you. So yeah, it was the reports are robust enough to give you all the information you could possibly want, but they're not overwhelming to someone like me, who's my generation of the company doesn't have an extensive construction knowledge. So they broke it down for me in layman's terms, but also no EV experience. So they also were able to give me some general best practices of how EVs normally operate, EV users.
You're touching on that. We also, in the reports, we provide an operational model. So for you as the site host, if you charged this much per kilowatt hour based on our estimated usage of the chargers, this is your break-even point. So that right out of the gate from the report, before a charger is even installed, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be charging the tenants to use the electrified EV parking stall.
Yeah, and really, I take break-even points and the revenue I'm making off of the kilowatt hour. I briefly touched on this in the thing with a grain of salt. There's so many things I can't quantify. Like, like for instance, vacancy loss. Like, it seems like my apartments are not sitting on Zillow or Craigslist as long, or apartments.com. They seem to be, because I'm one of the rare ones where it's like, oh wait, I don't have to like fight over a charger near the leasing office, or I don't need to, or you have electric vehicle charging, period. It seems as though my apartments are renting faster and for higher prices. So it's like, it's hard to quantify what is the market doing that, what is my EV chargers doing that, what is the remodel doing. So it's hard to decipher between it, but it definitely plays a role in it. There's I don't want to say hidden costs, there's hidden revenue in there that I can't quantify.
Understood. Excellent. We got a question here from Whit. Let's see, where's the industry at with virtual sub-metering and residents being able to pay for their charging sessions on their utility bills? Melanie, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, it sounds like you're quite up to date here. So I'm going to try, I think we will talk about this concept perhaps a little bit more in our next webinar, where we're going to do a bit of a technical deep dive. But generally, for those who might not be aware, virtual sub-metering is the idea that the EV charger itself rather than you paying via credit card or app when you pay, that could actually act as a device that communicates with the utility, and the charging usage, instead of paying for that charging, it'll appear directly on your utility bill. So you just get your bill from PG&E and PCE, and your charging usage is already there. The benefit of virtual submetering, what we're really excited about, is that it'll come at your home utility rate, right? So you don't necessarily have to pay any additional markups. It's going to appear right on your bill at that baseline electric rate that you're paying at home. So as far as where the industry at, this is a very new technology. I think last year is when this officially was made available via the communication protocols through the utilities. So it's a very new technology. And as far as we know, we're just seeing the first handful of EV charging suppliers. I know that Orange is interested in this. I know that Pando, Zorova, Switch, a lot of other charging companies are starting to look into and develop the virtual submetering offering. But as far as I know, we haven't seen a commercial installation yet, but I would expect to start seeing them in the next year or so become available.
And that kind of leads in perfect to the next question from Alfred. To what extent are private sector vendors promoting the incentive? So this would be the companies like Orange or Pando or Blink, or even the electrician installers. What extent are we seeing them promote the incentive?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question, and it's actually good for us to talk to this point as well for everyone in the room to know that there are kind of two routes that customers take to install chargers through our program. One is to go through the technical assistance process, and the other is to work directly with a developer. And we do have many customers come to us, I'm already working with Switch, I'm already working with Pando, whoever it is, and they just apply directly for incentives and move forward with that process. And it's important to know too, we're always looking to partner with our vendors. So I hope that vendors are promoting outreach. I know that some of them certainly do. But yeah, we always want any vendor, we are vendor agnostic, and we want any charging company, any developer with a project to feel free to come to us and get funding and bring that to us. And same for any customer who's already working with one of these, technology providers, you can come to us directly for funding. And we are interested in funding projects from any and all different vendors. Yeah, I hope that answers. I think that will answer that question.
Can you talk a little bit about the designated applicant option?
Yes, I will say too, we are also discussing the option of having an additional webinar targeted specifically towards our industry partners and developers. So if that's you and you're on this call, look for that later this year, because I think we would love to talk through this process. I will say right now, it's about 50-50 of residents like coming directly to us, working through our technical assistance and moving forward with their project versus customers coming to us through a developer or a partner that's bringing them in. So what that process looks like. So when you apply for incentives, if you go onto our website, there's two options. There's to enroll in technical assistance or apply for incentives directly. Most property owners, or if you're just getting started exploring your options, highly recommend you start with technical assistance. But if you're, if you're a developer and you're coming forward, we're ready to put in this project, what you're going to do when you fill out the application, you'll put in both the customer's information, and contact information and your own, right? So if I'm whatever, Charging Company USA, I'm going to put in my information from Charging Company USA and also the customer's information. And what you'll do is you'll sign a designated applicant form. And we can actually, in that way, manage the process through the developer. So it becomes even easier for the customer at the end of the day. They don't even necessarily have to think about where the incentives are coming from or how it's being paid out. That charging company or that electrician who's installing and developing the project can handle that process on behalf of our customers. So yeah, I think if you go right there, those two buttons that you're showing, yeah, there you go. This is what the application form looks like. Actually, you might as well show it since you have it pulled up. Yeah, so yeah, there would be this form that would be completed. Cool. So yeah, I mean, all this to say, we're always looking to partner with our vendors, with our electricians, anyone who's installing EV charging in our service territory is not a competitor to us, but a partner in installing more chargers. Yeah, Michael, what's up?
Yeah, so I just got an email from somebody who attended, and this is a customer that I had actually had some conversations with late last year. So they just, and I guess this pretty much goes to the incentive portion. It looks like I guess they've already have chargers. They already have their chargers, but I guess they would like to move forward with, I guess, um, installing those chargers. And I guess if I'm understanding this correctly, they already have their own contractor, somebody who could do the work. So under that circumstance, would they qualify for just applying for the incentives only without the technical assistance?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And that's great that you have someone moving forward right now. And yeah, I think it's good to note for anyone that is developing a project, if you have your own contractor, if you have equipment ready to be installed, it is important that you reserve your incentives before you break ground. That's what we ask, is that before you start construction, you go ahead and lock in your incentive reservation. That just helps us know to set that pool of funding aside for you and keep track of what's coming down the pipeline. And yeah, we try and make that process as smooth as possible. Again, that would be from this page. You can apply for incentives directly. And yeah, we'll be happy to work with you to fund those projects.
And you basically answered. Jeff just put a question in the Q&A. It says, will your application and level of rebate be awarded before you begin the installation?
Yes. Yeah, we won't pay the rebate until the rebate gets paid once the chargers are in the ground and fully commissioned. But it is important to reserve your rebate before starting construction.
Exactly. Jeff, I
Right.
hope that answered
I
your
think,
question.
So yeah, Jeff is the one who sent me the email. So okay, Jeff.
Oh, there you go.
I'm glad you
okay,
got the answer to
great.
your
Oh, you're
question.
still here, Jeff. I
Okay.
see it looks like we have another question in the chat as well. Does PCE support new construction, Cal Green code requirements, or solely existing properties? This is a great question. So yeah, thank you for asking this. So this will get a little bit into the details. So if you're unsure, I encourage you to check our website and check our program standards, or you could email us directly if you have a specific project. But the way it's set up right now is we will not help new construction meet code requirements unless it's affordable housing. If it's affordable housing project, we have an exception to that rule, and we'll absolutely still fund any chargers you're interested in putting in. If it's market rate housing or other, construction like a job site, workplace, or something else, what we still can offer is incentive funding for any chargers that are beyond the code requirements. And so what I'll encourage for some properties to consider, it's like this might still help you meet costs or like offset costs, right? If you're being required by code to put in, say, 10 chargers at this, small office building, but instead you put in 20, we'll provide incentives for the additional 10. And if it ends up helping you get all 20 installed, more is the better, right? But yeah, I think for existing or for non-affordable housing projects, it's important to note we'll only fund what's beyond required by code.
Perfect. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. Do we have any closing remarks? I'll let Brandon start off if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up for today.
No, the only thing I was just popped in my head as you were going through slides and talking, and I know this was about saving costs, and the word charger gets used a lot, and the word outlet gets used a lot. From what I saw on that podcast and what I haven't experienced it because I don't have it, but you can save some money by going outlet versus charger, because most of the people that use these have chargers that come with their cars, a NEMA 520 charger or NEMA 620 charger, depending if you're doing level 1 or level 2. And it's one less thing for me. I'm always looking for less things to break. And the charger themselves can break, or you need to buy a new cord or a new something. Whereas the outlet is much less likely to break. And in my experiences, when I have had trouble with an outlet, like I said, I use Orange Charger, and they've actually sent someone out to my property, uninstalled the old one, reinstalled the new one, and it was pretty seamless as far as that went.
And most EVs come with a convenience charger, they call them. In fact, this is a picture of my convenience charger that came with my Nissan Leaf when I bought it 5 years ago. And it just plugs into a regular 110 outlet. There's nothing special about it. It just goes straight from the outlet in the garage right into the car. It's so easy. My 13-year-old does it, even though he gripes about it because it's a chore. But yeah. And then there's these are more what we call a charging station, which is doesn't always have to have a pedestal, but it'll have a cord ending in the connector that goes into the car. And this is going to be a level 2, usually runs on a 240 volt outlet type power. But yeah, that's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up again, because I think a lot of people think EV charger, they don't think EV outlet. So yeah, it's a very good distinction. Michael, thank you again, Brandon. Really appreciate you taking time to out of your busy schedule to share your experience with us today. Is just absolutely wonderful. Michael, any final closing thoughts before we wrap up for today?
I just want to thank everybody for attending, and hopefully you've got a lot of information out of this. As we mentioned earlier, we had a very successful webinar in March, and we have another one coming up in June. So, we're here for you, and, certainly feel free to, email, call, whatever, go to the PCE website, take a look, because we're here to help. And as we said in one of the opening slides, the EVs are here to stay. I mean, this is how it is going to be, particularly as it relates to San Mateo County. And so there's money on the table, and certainly if it works for your individual use case, we certainly encourage you to go through this process. As George mentioned earlier, it's complimentary, so it's a free assessment. And so my thing is, what do you have to lose? But again, thank you for attending. Brandon, thanks as always. And that's kind of my closing thought.
Melanie, you get the last word.
I don't think I have much to add. You guys have said it. I'd just say again, we're here to help. It's what I love about my job here at PCE is we're really able to reinvest through community programs like this, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear how we can better serve our community members and our property owners within our service territory. So thank you all for joining.
Absolutely, and just so grateful to have such a wonderful partner as PCE. Again, if you have a moment, please, we would really appreciate any feedback on today's webinar, and be sure to look out for an invite to our next webinar coming up on June 3rd. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your time today, and looking forward to connecting with everyone as you go through complimentary technical advising and get some EV charging installed in your building. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great day.